Now call the meeting to order at 7:03 p.m. Welcome everybody to ANC1E's May General Body Meeting. This is our first hybrid in-person and virtual meeting. So we thank you for your patience as we try to figure out some of the technology, and we will do our best here in the room to try to mitigate feedback and things of that nature. For people on the phone, if you cannot hear us for any reason, please do not hesitate to use the chat function or the questions to let us know. We will be monitoring it to make sure that we are aware if there are any technical issues. A few administrative notes. So today's meeting is being recorded. Today's meeting is being recorded. For those joining virtually through Zoom, closed caption is available for each user by clicking the button on the toolbar below. Please submit questions through the Q&A function located on the toolbar below. If you're calling in rather than participating through the web, you may raise your hand by dialing *9. We'll be monitoring questions throughout the meeting. I now ask Secretary Jacobson to conduct the roll.
All right, thank you, Chair Footer. Commissioner Gallagher.
Are you presenting your screen to the community?
Good catch. Okay, Commissioner Gallagher said present. Commissioner Lancaster, is she on the Zoom at all?
I don't see her.
Okay. Commissioner Jacobson, that's me, present. Chair Footer.
Present.
Commissioner Brown.
Present.
Commissioner Ray.
Present.
And Commissioner Newland.
Present.
All right, with 6 out of 7 commissioners present, we have a quorum for the meeting tonight.
Great, thank you. Per DC law, the ANC meeting was noticed to the community via listserv, social media, website, and e-calendar. Moving to the approval of the agenda, I'll quickly read through it for those who are joining us virtually. So we will start off today's meeting with a presentation from Councilmember Nadeau on the FY24 committee report, FY24 budget committee report. Then we'll move to the consent agenda. And we have one item in the consent agenda, which is just the approval of the April public meeting minutes. Then we will move to official business, and we'll start with the Zoning and Economic Development Committee. Then we'll go to Transportation and Public Space Committee, where we have 2 resolutions under consideration. Resolution in support of DDOT's traffic and safety assessment for the 500 to 700 blocks of Columbia Road Northwest, and then a resolution requesting the notice of intent to include bike lanes. Then we'll move to Public Safety and Engagement Committee. Then we have a resolution under our Alcohol, Beverage, and Cannabis Administration section. It's a settlement agreement with, and I always say this incorrectly, so please help me say it correctly. Anaya, Market Wine and Spirits. And then we have under other business, a resolution requesting agencies respond to ANC resolutions via the ANC resolution portal. Are there any additions to the agenda? All right, hearing none. I'll now accept the motion to approve the agenda.
By unanimous consent.
Thank you. Are there any objections? All right, hearing none, the motion passes and the agenda is adopted. All right, so now we move on to a presentation from Councilmember Nadeau. We're honored to have our special guest here today. Thank you. Councilmember Nadeau is here to present the Public Works and Operations Committee budget report. We have 30 minutes allocated for the presentation, which includes time for questions. After the presentation, I'll open the floor to commissioners and then for questions, and then to the public to ask questions. So with that, Councilmember, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's great to be here with ANC1E in person. And thank you very much for allowing me to spend some time with you tonight and take some time on your agenda. I wanted to come before you to present the latest on the fiscal year 24 budget and the work that's being done by the council. So we're heading toward the finish line on the district budget for the fiscal year that starts October 1. That's fiscal year 24. We were given a budget that was pretty austere. And I'm pleased to say that at this point, we've got a lot of positive things that have come out of the process, particularly for Ward 1, but also for the district as a whole. I've been able to make significant investments in the ward in this budget. So I'm going to start with some public safety highlights, including crime prevention and traffic safety. From my committee, I was able to allocate $4.5 million in public safety investments, including $750,000 to expand the targeted outreach program that we piloted in Columbia Heights Plaza. This funding will address the similar challenges of individuals in adjacent neighborhoods to ultimately support holistic community development in Ward 1. And that will include U Street, Lower Georgia Avenue, and Mount Pleasant Street. $200,000 grant for funding for a pilot program to provide substance abuse and behavioral health services in the vicinity of the 600 block of T Street Northwest. That's right by the Howard Theater. And that is a grant to our partner HIPS that does harm reduction and can help address the issues that we're having there. $250,000 to the Safe Commercial Corridors program for Adams Morgan to hire some safety ambassadors, as well as nearly $4.5 million for violence prevention to the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement to bolster efforts in Parkview, Columbia Heights, LaDroit, and also add a presence in the vicinity of 14th and V. And it will also dedicate traffic control officers at 14th and Irving, which is one of the busiest intersections in the city and one that we desperately need the laws to be observed in. I was also really proud to fund improvements to neighborhood life, focusing on clean streets, better parks, and walkable sidewalks. The budget retains funds for the Bruce Monroe development, which is new replacement public housing for Park Morton and new affordable housing on Georgia Avenue, plus a new permanent park and community space. $1.6 million for open streets citywide, which includes continuing Georgia Avenue open streets in October. It retains funding for the Parkview Recreation Center. We are still looking to see if we can plus that up a little bit, given the inflation and construction costs that have increased. And so we're still tinkering a little bit and might be able to make that happen. So stick with us and we'll keep you posted. I also expanded the service area of the Shaw Clean Team to include the 1900 block of 8th Street Northwest. And let's see, $800,000 for structural and aesthetic improvements to streeteries. That'll focus on 18th Street and Mount Pleasant, where we have the most of them. And then $1 million for a green slow streets program in Ward 1, which will target blocks with poor sidewalk conditions, ADA issues, drainage problems, tree canopy needs, and safety simultaneously. So if there are blocks that you think might be good for this, please let me know. We'll be happy to talk through whether we think it's a good fit and make those recommendations to DDOT. I was able to fund with my colleagues, I was able to fund everything it takes to implement the street vendor law. So we will be doing that pilot, vending zone in Columbia Heights with the vending zone manager, with the distinct areas that people will vend, with the pared down license. And I met today with the Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection about how to get that all done. And we're very eager to get that on the ground. And then I added 2 community planning positions to the Office of Planning, which will certainly help us citywide and will help us board-wide. In particular, those were needed in order to do public life studies for Mount Pleasant Street and Central Columbia Heights, but those are permanent positions that will benefit us all for many years. For those of you who've been following along, it also adds $500,000 for a phase 2 build out at Amigos Park and maintains funding for redevelopment of the Reeves Center at 14th and U. Education in Ward 1 was also top of mind for me this budget season, and the Committee of the Whole was able to restore the cuts to all of our neighborhood schools that were very concerning. And I was able to help add $3 million to support childcare at the Roosevelt Stay program at Garnett Patterson. That'll allow parents scholars to have their children on site, which has been a very high priority for the school. So I'm now the chair of the Committee on Public Works and Operations. We talked about this a little bit in January when I came. When the council received the budget, our committee saw there were 90 vacant positions cut from the Department of Public Works. And that's our agency that does all the parking enforcement and all the waste management in the city. Hello. And so we know that those are critical positions. So with some creativity, mainly identifying new revenue that we could generate by restoring certain positions like parking enforcement and reallocating overtime into full-time equivalents, which we think is a move for good government. In addition to helping fill these holes, we were restored over 50 positions that will support waste disposal, graffiti removal, enhanced leaf pickup, and better booting and towing operations. Those are all critical to quality of life and public safety. And then we also restored or added positions in our other agencies at the Office of Administrative Hearings, the Mayor's Office of LGBTQ Affairs, the Office of Human Rights, and we are now going to be able to advance the public restroom initiative. You may have followed this saga. The law got passed almost 4 years ago, and the agency that was meant to implement it just didn't. And then the mayor took the funding. And so what I did was I found more money. I found more funding, and then I decided just to put the program in DPW where I have oversight, and they're very excited to do it with us now. And so we'll actually, with the cost actually coming down on one thing in this budget, we'll be able to do 5 restrooms instead of the original 3 in the pilot. We won't get them all, but we should be able to count on at least 1 here in Ward 1, and then we'll share the wealth with folks across the city. Just a few more citywide investments that I know that you and our constituents care about a lot. There were massive cuts in the proposed mayor's budget to the emergency rental assistance program. The entire budget was $8 million. And just to give you a sense, this year the budget was $43 million and it ran out in March. So we all came together and pitched in. And so we got it back to up to $43 million. And I was really proud to contribute $3 million of that. And all of our colleagues really chipped in. I was also happy to add funding for vouchers for returning citizens, which is a big need in our community. And Chairman Mendelson was able to identify funds for new permanent supportive housing for more than 200 vouchers, which is really exciting. The mayor had 0 in her budget. Let's see, we talked about schools. Oh, so citywide, the other thing we did in addition to restoring funding for all of our DCPS schools was we really listened to teachers in their desire to do more flexible scheduling. So we have one of the worst retention rates of public school teachers in the country, which has a huge impact on our children, their learning, our advancement as a school district. And one thing that we keep hearing over and over is just flexibility and some very basic things like having planning periods. I mean, most people don't realize a lot of our teachers don't even have time to plan during the day. And so while there are some schools that have been piloting flexible scheduling, the funding that we were able to identify now will allow us to expand that program and really pilot more broadly. So DCPS can have several models to work from in our charter schools as well that will help us retain teachers and give them the supports they need to help our children thrive. We also restored cuts and increased funding for school-based behavioral health services. One shocking thing in the mayor's budget was that she had completely cut the circulator citywide. So we were able to restore the budget for 1 year, which includes the Woodley Park Adams Morgan line in Ward 1, which many people take. There's a lot more conversation that we need to have about the future of the circulator, because with the electrification standards that we have, in order to keep the circulator, we need to build a new bus barn with charging stations. And that is not currently in the capital improvement plan. But one thing that's going on right now is our Better Bus Network redesign program that the public has the opportunity to participate in. And it's an opportunity for folks to talk about how they use that route. And if the circulator does go away for the long term, what Metro Bus needs to be doing to ensure that that route is covered, and also to comment on current routes and future routes and, the ideal routes, and to really re-envision our bus service so that it's not just sort of the same paths that our streetcars traveled long ago, but make it work for our residents. For me, the goal is really that it should be just as convenient to get across the city by bus as it is by car, in terms of length of travel. And I think we could do it if we really put our heads together. So I also had made a proposal in my committee to charge a congestion management fee on ride shares that go downtown during morning rush hour and leave in the afternoon and evening rush hour, which would have two goals. One would be to influence behavior so that we reduce congestion downtown, and the other would be to fund overnight bus. Now, we started the conversation about congestion pricing with that measure. It did not make it in the final version of the budget, but what did make it was a surcharge that is going to fund overnight bus, and it'll be 13 lines 24/7. And it's really exciting. This is something that small businesses and employees have asked for a really long time. We have a lot of folks who work the night shift. We have a lot of people who are out and about at night and need to get home safely and affordably. And overnight bus on priority routes will allow us to do that. So I'm really proud to have pushed the envelope on that. And that also, now in our in the budget, we have required that the mayor release the long-awaited congestion pricing study that's been done and now is being sort of reworked post-COVID. The preliminary reports I've seen are very promising in terms of how much revenue could be generated by true congestion pricing that could help us actually support our transportation system. And we know with Metro expecting a fiscal cliff in the next couple years, that having a dedicated funding stream that also helps us rebuild our transit system by pushing our ridership back to it really could help. So I think we all need to be taking that seriously. I'm very pleased that we got to have a very public discussion about that already in this year's budget. There's just a couple other pieces of legislation I want to tell you about that got funded in the budget that I think folks are really excited about. The Domestic Workers Employment Rights Bill is fully funded. That's now in my committee. And I was able to help get that done, while of course supported it being passed prior, but now I get to help see it be implemented. The Local Resident Voting Rights Act was funded by the Labor Committee. So that's my legislation. Now all residents living in the District of Columbia who are of voting age will be able to participate in local elections regardless of their immigration status. And then I'm also really excited that I was able to identify funding for the Pocket Act, which is a bill that I passed in my old committee last year, which does two things. One, it requires the Child and Family Services Agency to apply for vouchers for residents, for youth exiting our care, which is free. They are available. Okay, so we're back. The budget certainly is not perfect, but I think we took a really austere situation that was going to do harm to our most vulnerable residents, and the council did our best to fill those holes, close those gaps, make sure we weren't doing any wasteful spending. So the two areas that I'm still hoping we can find funding are for SNAP. That's our food stamps program. And then also for our excluded workers who had $20 million pulled right out from under them. That funding was in this year's budget. It was supposed to be going out the door now. And that's for folks who work really in the gray economy. So they wouldn't have been eligible during the pandemic for unemployment benefits, but still had a lot of expenses. And many of them depleted their savings just so they wouldn't be evicted and they could stay afloat, and now are in really desperate situations and we're expecting that funding. So my hope is we can restore that between now and May 30th, which is Tuesday. But yeah, I'm really, really proud of the work that we've done. I'm so happy to be here with you, and happy to take any questions at the chair's discretion. Thank you so much.
You at the master computer, so. All right, so let's open up any questions from commissioners for.
Just need to unmute. Couple of questions for you, I guess, for the Resident Voting Rights Act. Thanks so much for working on that. I had a few constituents mention that they're looking forward to voting. Do you know when that implementation will happen? Will it be ready for the 2024 elections, or?
That's the goal, given the fact
Okay.
that we were able to fund it in this fiscal year. We'll obviously be working very closely with the Board of Elections, but that's what the law contemplated.
Got it. Okay, thank you. And then, are you aware of the issue with graffiti removal requests where you can't request them unless it's like the time of year where they'll actually remove them?
Yes, I
Okay.
am, and happy to have a deeper conversation about that. So the Department of Public Works is expanding their contract, but the reason that it's seasonal has always been temperature based. I think that as we have more conversations about climate change, we can talk about graffiti removal, snow removal, street sweeping, things that sort of, and alley cleaning is another one that happens seasonally, because I think the community's needs have evolved as the temperature has risen too. So we can be working on that in oversight.
Yeah, and my main gripe with it is that if the graffiti is there, I should just be able to request that it's taken, even if it's not going to be done for a while.
Yeah.
And so if it's January, I'm sure the graffiti will still be there in March. And if I could just say, hey, there's graffiti here, can you put it on your queue for when operations start back up again? I think that's better than not being able to do anything at all.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I just have and then the last one, I think this came up with Bruce Monroe Park recently. Banneker has been missing 3 swings for quite some time.
Mhm.
And it's been very frustrating for residents because DPR knows that it's an issue and it takes them a very long time to get swings. Like it's been 6 months since they were first notified about this. And like in that time, I could have bought swings myself and installed them for like $200, and I'm sure it would have been a better situation. Is there anything that can be done to speed up their procurement processes or like for quick fixes like that so that our parks don't get worse and worse until we finally break and then we just end up saying like it's time to put in a new park?
Yeah, I'm glad you raised that one. I know Kevin has been working with you on it in my office and has followed up with DPR on it. So all of the maintenance of our parks is done by the Department of General Services, and we have a new DGS director. And I met with him a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that I said to him was, if you could solve the problem of it taking so long to replace rubber swings that break, you would basically have my undying loyalty, because I do not understand why it takes so long. And I personally have put in so many requests for swings to be repaired, whether it's at the Bruce Monroe Park near my house or the Parkview Rec near my house or Banneker. And also it's just maddening because you, especially when you have little ones, you head to the park, and I have one who's obsessed with the swing, and she's too little to go on a big swing. So if you get there and there's only one baby swing and it's broken, you're screwed, even if it's a big swing, so I agree. There have been many times where I've thought, I wonder if I could buy one of these online, and go out there with a wrench and a bolt tightener, but I haven't done it yet. But I know, like, if those swings just show up in the middle of the night, the public will know it's either you or me who's done it. But yeah, no, in all seriousness, it is something that I've raised, like in my first meeting with the new director, the swings in particular. And one of the things that he talked about was, They've made some improvements on sort of the front end of intake for work orders, but what they need to do is really the last mile and the quality assurance at the end, because things are getting lost along the way and then the public isn't getting what they need. And so I'm grateful that he's going to bring his attention to that. He was the parks director prior, so he has a very deep knowledge of what's been going wrong, in particular with recreation facilities.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a couple.
Yes.
Yes.
It's not so much a budget, well, maybe it's not a budget issue, but street cleaning is totally in your purview now. Unfortunately, I think we are now seeing the street sweepers show up, but they can't get to the curbs any longer because parking enforcement. This is,
It's now bailed out.
Yeah. So I mean, on my block, there can be easily 10 to 20 cars. So is there any discussion right now as to how to address this concern?
It's constant. I can tell you at the beginning of street sweeping, I was basically following the sweepers around, making notes and sending them in. And one of the things that we noticed initially was the sweepers were coming too early, and they were coming before the parking enforcement team had even had a chance to ticket, let alone people like maybe moving on their own because it was before the window, right? So yes, DPR could say the sweeper had done the block, but like that wasn't really like the whole story, right? And of course, you don't know unless you're actually out there watching it. So for me, it was like, all right, I can, like, Ward 1's pretty small. If I want to follow the sweepers around for their whole route, I could basically do it. And I mean, there's other things I need to do, but so I did that for a few weeks and we were reporting back, and so they were making some adjustments. And it's really interesting because like you think you know what's going wrong until you go and you're looking at like, oh no, it's a totally different thing, right? So we are working really closely with parking enforcement and street sweeping teams to make sure that they can coordinate better. Even though they're all under DPW, they're totally different divisions. And so there isn't, I would say, as close of coordination as there could be. But there's been some new leadership at the agency, and we're really, I mean, we are going to continue holding them accountable until we get it right. And in Ward 1, I know people care about this a lot. I mean, we have a lot of litter, and also we care about the environment and our waterways. And so we're not going to let it go. So we'll keep at it. Yeah.
That was one of my top things on here that I wanted to kind of echo, and actually thank you, because I saw the mayor's original proposal took out 29 FTEs and restored all of them. So thank you for that. I've been working with DPW personally over the past month and a half, and I was on the phone with them for an hour, and I could hear them on walkie-talkies talking to each other. And they're understaffed. It seems like they're really
They
working hard,
are.
running around, but to cut 29 of those when there's already a deficit seems like a very hard move. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
And then I noticed also that, and I wasn't quite clear on it, so if you don't mind helping me to understand, I saw that the mayor cut 35 FTEs under the public space cleaning, and I know you restored some of them, but I couldn't find
Yes.
the number.
We restored the sweep teams.
Just
So every ward has their own sweep inspectors. And there were, yeah, so we've restored all that, all the vacancies that were cut there. We want to see more people on the ground. And sweep inspectors are really important because they're the people who come when you call for illegal dumping. They're the ones who call and do spot cleaning when there's an issue. And they're out there on the ground, working really hard, investigating, right? They don't just pick up the trash. They try to figure out who dumped it so they can issue the citation. And it's really important work, and we want them to have the support they need. And we want them to also just like know that we value them. If I could double the number of sweep inspectors across the city, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Like that's something to, but that's it. They really are the ones who come when we call about a lot of the things in each ward. So
a couple of other questions I had. The health grant for the 600 block of tea.
Yeah.
Amazing. Very excited for that. I know that's been a really big issue. I know that's technically that's 1B, but 1E particularly, my district gets heavily impacted by that. And I have the stats to kind of prove how we've gotten a lot of the kind of escape routes and all that. but can you run us through some of that program? I'm really excited.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So one of the things that I've observed over the years in Ward 1 is that even though we do have a behavioral health program in the city, the CRT, that's supposed to be moving around and is augmented with community partners, we don't have that place-based intervention at the street level. And so that's why I first piloted the program in Columbia Heights. I was really trying with the resources we had, but just to give you a sense, the CRT, the community response team, has about 43 staff citywide right now, and they work 24 hours. So they're not all on at the same time. And I think the direction we should be moving is having their staffing levels so that they can be rapid response. Like, if you call 988, they're the people who come, as compared to like MPD has, 3,200 people that can come, also working 24 hours on shifts, but you get the idea, right? It's like a huge difference. So I could tell based on the reports I was getting each year from DBH that even though they were present in the ward, they weren't making those meaningful connections with the people that were grappling with addiction and substance use disorder. And so people weren't getting better. And all of our programs are voluntary, so it's not like it's a magic wand. But when we put our first person on Columbia Heights Plaza, she like almost immediately got 4 people into detox and rehab. And then it was 10 people, and then it was 20 people, and now it's dozens of people, and we have 2 people on the plaza. And the reason that we and that's for alcoholism. Now, that's District Bridges and their community navigator program, and that's what's going to be in the rest of the ward. Down at Howard Theater, we're going to be with HIPS, and HIPS does harm reduction, and they specialize in working with people who are needle drug users. And that's what we have down there. And it's a different animal, right? And it's not magic, right? But the fact that we'll have a person who can be there day in and out, and that we can build trust with the consumers down there, and really have them understand that there's a person there that cares about them and wants them to get healthy, and that when it is the day that they're ready to go, that person will be there. And that's part of it is, it may take someone several tries to get healthy. But if we're there the day they're ready, then we can make it happen for them. And there's also going to be a sobering center opening up in Columbia Heights. So that'll help us all, because folks who are willing to go can sober up there and then, receive resources as they're sobering up. So I'm very excited about it. So they do needle exchange. They do Narcan. They, ultimately the goal is to get people into treatment, but in the meantime, they want to keep everybody safe. And I think they're part of, they'd love to see also, safe consumption centers, which I would love to see too. We haven't quite got there as a government. But the idea here is very similar to what it was in Columbia Heights, which is this is a public space that could be so vibrant, but we're having trouble activating it because of the current use. There is a role for MPD in terms of drug sales, but most of the issue we're having is really around the consumption and serving those people and making sure we can get them the supports they need to get healthy. And that'll help the small businesses that have come to us, and that'll help the school, and that'll help all the residents.
We have time for probably one more question. Oh, yes, and before we go to the audience, from the commissioners, any other questions? Members of the audience, if you have questions, please raise your hand.
I'm happy to. Hearing none. There's a chat. Sorry, my computer is no longer connected to the internet, so somebody, yeah.
Nothing in the queue.
No. If anybody does have a question on the phone, please signify by raising your hand. You can also raise your hand by dialing *9 if you are calling in rather than joining via web.
So pretty small online attendance. So
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Some are.
Right. Well, council member, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate having you in person. And if there are other questions or anything, I'm sure we will be able to reach out to you and Kevin, but thank you so much for your time.
Commissioners, thank you very much for allowing me to take the time tonight, and I hope you have a very successful meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So again, my computer has kind of stopped working, so I'm just going to be looking over your shoulder. All right, so now we're going to move to the consent agenda. Just as a reminder, all matters listed under the consent are considered by the commission to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. Any commissioner may, however, remove an item from the consent agenda by request. The consent agenda includes the approval of the April 2023 ANC 1E public meeting minutes. Are there any additions or anything that people want to take off of the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, I'll accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I motion to adopt the consent agenda with unanimous consent.
Thank you. Any dissent? Hearing none, the motion passes and items in the consent agenda are approved. We are moving along. I love it. All right, now we will move to community announcements. Commissioners and members of the community can use this time to make public announcements, distribute information, or alert the community about issues. For members of the public, if you are here to discuss any item listed under official business, please hold your comments until we get to the item on the agenda. All speakers will have 3 minutes. We'll start with commissioners, then move to the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services, also known as MOCRS. And then this week, we will not move over to the council members, Councilmember Nadeau's representative by their request. But there is a standing time in case you change your mind. The representative from, and then we will move to the public. So with that, commissioners, does anybody have an announcement?
I do.
Yes. Commissioner James.
I am hosting a community cleanup on Monday, Memorial Day at 11 a.m. It'll be launching from 2605 Sherman Avenue Northwest. And I'm fortunate enough to be joined by Commissioner Easley from 1A and Commissioner Lakatos from 1B. So if anyone wants to join that, I'll be baking chocolate chip and blueberry scones from scratch as always, and we'll have plenty of those to share. So
You are a fantastic baker, so that is.
thank you.
Any other comments, questions? No. I did want to just take a moment and say that DDOT hosted their open house over the weekend, and a number of commissioners, including Commissioner Jacobson, attended. And I just was very enthusiastically supportive of. Oh yeah, gotta get me on
That's fair.
camera.
I didn't think of
It was a phenomenal event and very appreciative of the agency opening up their doors. It was a fair kind of style where different divisions, offices had a table and you can go up and actually ask them. They had presentations, all of that. As you guys all know, I've been working on a transportation package, which I'm very excited to bring next month. Cannot wait to hear Howard University's feedback. And I made a number of contacts over there that are going to be instrumental in making sure that I kind of push that through. And I couldn't have done that without DDOT actually opening their doors in that kind of way. So I'm just very appreciative and encourage people in the future when agencies do that, please join us. I know I'll be going as well. That is the only thing that I have. Last call. Any other announcements from commissioners? All right, hearing none. So looking at the attendance, I don't see online our MOCRS representative. One of them did reach out earlier and mention that they were not going to be able to join us. So I don't believe that anybody's from the mayor's office. Nope. All right. And we are not going to have the representative from the city council member's office. So we will move to the community. So yes, please, you're the first to raise your hand. If you don't mind, just because we want everyone to be able to hear, if you don't mind coming up to the podium. Thank you very much. And you have 3 minutes. Is it also?
I don't know, Mr. Gallagher is probably not.
Uh,
Yes, good evening, everybody. I'm with the DC Department of Public Works, so I'm one of the inspectors. So I'm assigned to this ward. So the issue we have right now is that some people might have concern about containers outside on wrong time, wrong day. But so I would like to announce to let you know that the council has repealed that law. That means if your container is out, if somebody's container is out on the wrong time, wrong day, there's nothing we can do. So if you call 311, when we come there, there's nothing we can do. We are not enforcing it anymore. So they repealed it recently. So if you want it back, you have to let somebody like council member, and I don't know, that you want it back. Some people didn't want it. It was like, it helps people like understand that they have to move their trash can from the alley, from the sidewalk, from the street sometimes. But now it was repealed. So that's the only new things we have. About the cars that are parked that do not move during the street cleaning, I will let the chief know. I'll do that. But you have to tell me the streets. I know Sherman Avenue sometimes.
We sent an email to them outlining their 3 SMDs in particular that have been missed. And so we sent them an email detailing all of it. But yes, if you don't mind re-mentioning that ANC 1E sent that email and that we'd be.
So who did you send the email to?
My internet's not working right now.
So,
Do you happen to
by the
have
way,
it?
I didn't say, my name is Justin Ingea, so my email address is justin.ingea@dc.gov. My telephone number I will give it to
Yeah.
202-409-1139. If you call, I don't pick up, text me. Text me
Okay.
with the problem and the location. I will address it.
And the best time to text you is when we're for street
Yeah,
sweeping.
if you
is-
see it anytime, you can text me in the night, anytime, you can text me. Some person text the pictures, that's good also.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Any
questions?
question?
Yeah, thank you, Inspector. We've done a lot of work in my SMD. Appreciate
Thank you.
everything that you've done for our ward. Yes, my single member district, especially along Irving Street, 400 through 600 blocks. Since the change that we've made, particularly on the, both sides of the street, I think folks aren't moving their cars during street cleaning times, so definitely use
No,
some coordination. Use some coordination between parking enforcement and DPW, so I'll send you a text, but appreciate all the work that we do together.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any more question?
I just,
Let's just, oh, go ahead, please.
yeah, I just wanted to thank you as well, Mr. Njia. I know we've corresponded on a few cases in my district as well, illegal dumping in my own backyard. So wanted to extend my thanks for your responsiveness and professionalism on these really tricky issues sometimes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Any other members of the community?
Yes, thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Stephanie Bueno. I am the Ward 1 liaison and Ward 4 liaison from Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton's office. We're starting to attend ANC meetings now. We're trying to become more active, but I just wanted to come introduce myself also to the public. Not a lot of people know that the district office exists and we're able to help with federal issues such as IRS, State Department passports, which right now is a big issue right now. But we also have an MPS Town Hall meeting on June 14th for those who want to attend. I know Meridian Park or Malcolm X Park is a big issue right now. So I have done a walkthrough with Commissioner Lakatos actually. So if anyone is interested in doing walkthroughs, if anyone's interested in any Ward 1 federal issue, I'm your contact. So I just wanted to introduce myself.
Thank you so much.
Of course, yes.
Any questions?
thank you so much for being here. We have been engaged with the Congresswoman's office about a particular constituent issue related to the United Service. Almost a year that my constituents haven't gotten their mail. We
Yes.
should absolutely connect, and maybe it would take someone from your office going down to the site with US Postal Service reps
Mhm.
to figure out what's happening on site, because it's ridiculous that they haven't received their mail.
Is it, I think I am the caseworker on that case,
Okay.
but we can connect afterwards.
To that point, do you mind telling us your email
Yes.
address?
So my email address is Stephanie, STEPHANIE .bueno, which is B as in boy, UENO @mail.house.gov. And then our district office number is 202-408-9041.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? No? Questions from the community or people online? All right. Thank you so much,
you.
Stephanie.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
All right. Now we will move to official business. If you can just mute it, thank you. Official. We'll now move to official business, which has been organized into 3 standing committees, then ABCA-related items, followed by other outstanding business. The committee chairs will begin by providing a brief update of their committee's activities from May. Then they will walk through each item of business and have 5 minutes per item to present. They will take questions from commissioners and audience members until a motion is proposed. We will start with the Zoning and Economic Development Committee. The chair recognizes Commissioner Gallagher. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Footer. Don't think I'll take that long. So the Zoning and Economic Development Committee cleared a backlog of zoning cases, some of which we inherited during the redistricting process as we were stood up as a new ANC over the February through April timeframe. In May, I'm happy to report that we actually had no official business on which we took a vote. We did receive an informal education on the new marijuana dispensary licensing regulations, since this body is considering whether the Zoning and Economic Development Committee will be an appropriate committee to hear some of the medical marijuana licensing cases in the future. We also heard the applicant's presentation on the map amendment case on the 600 block of Morton Street Northwest. Yes. We deferred voting on that map amendment case until the applicants have had an opportunity to engage with neighbors a little more extensively, and deferred that action till probably at least our next meeting, if not after. So the meetings of the Zoning and Economic Development Committee continue to be on the second Wednesday of the month. Wednesday, June 14th at 7 p.m. is our next meeting. Details on that meeting and all ANC 1E meetings are on the website, anc1e.org. And as I say every month, if any community members are interested in joining the Zoning and Economic Development Committee, please reach out to your commissioner. We have some committee members here tonight. Thank you for joining. And I'm happy to take any questions from commissioners or members of the public on what we've been up to on zoning and economic development.
Great. Members of the community, any questions? No. There. All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Next, we will move to Transportation and Public Space Committee. Commissioner Jacobson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Footer. So this month we talked about one resolution for a DDOT traffic safety assessment, and I'll defer to Commissioner Brown on that in just a minute. And then we have another resolution that came up over the past week or so for a tactical roundabout that will be going in. It's actually in 1B, but it affects 1E because a lot of our constituents use the bike lanes on 9th Street, and then the bike lanes that are going to go in 11th Street, and then I'll hopefully connect them there. And then just a brief announcement that next month we'll be hearing an update from DDOT on the bus priority project for Georgia. But now we can talk about the resolutions, and for the first one, I will yield the floor to Commissioner Brown. And I will pull up that resolution and share it out.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. And this resolution is in support of a DDOT traffic safety assessment for the 500 through 700 blocks of Columbia Road Northwest. I received a few complaints from residents regarding speed along this particular corridor. It is slated and was studied for the crosstown multimodal transportation study that DDOT rolled out back in 2015. It is has been identified to receive a priority bus lane as a part of this transportation plan. I believe I saw something in the budget on it to improve connections between wards 1 and wards 5 as cars traverse through Northwest from Northeast. And this is a one-way street. So we receive a lot of speed coming from the hospital centers as they move along through Georgia Avenue and into Columbia Heights. We have a childcare, home-based childcare center that's there, Woodbridge Childcare, and a couple of parks in the surrounding areas. We have Wangari Gardens and also Bruce Monroe Park, and many seniors who live on this particular corridor. So in response to those complaints, I met with neighbors. We did a community walkthrough in April with DDOT and with Councilmember Nadeau's office and the Mokers, and came up with a few traffic calming measures that DDOT is actually supportive of. So this resolution includes what those traffic safety measures look like in the form of recommendations that are in the whereas section. So one is removing the peak hour, rush hour restrictions for RPP residential parking permits, except during street cleaning times on both sides of the street. Installing a speed table or rumble strips, not the speed tables that you see that are pretty heavy and elevated, but ones that are similar to Irving Street, which are light rumble strips, or the ones that you see that's at the intersection of New Hampshire and Georgia Avenue. Because we know there's issues with shaking of the homes and noise that comes from that. We also are recommending 2-lane markings because that street has not been marked. So in the midst of us getting the RPP parking restrictions lifted, which may take a while, an immediate step would be to include those markings so that there's 2 lanes that are indicated on the street, and that traffic flow could happen accordingly. And also installing signage both on the street and in the alley, pedestrian signage. As we know, there's an H bus stop that's there, so that could also help improve issues with speed, in indicating the speed limit sign, children at play, slow signs, and then lastly, having a rumble strip markings and flexi post kind of at this access alleyway, access point at an alleyway that's located at the 600 block of Columbia Road. And that would enhance visibility and create a clearance for folks that are stopping right at that access point in the alley to get onto Columbia Road and make that right. So it would improve safety there. So this resolution acknowledges that we have a dedicated bus lane that will be coming to Columbia Road, and that these traffic calming measures are temporary until many of these traffic calming measures will be temporary, such as the lifting the RPP restrictions until that bus lane gets installed. So this resolution not only would support these recommendations for traffic calming measures, but it would also express ANC1E's support for the multimodal plan for the priority bus lane. So I share that with the community and before the general body, and I open it up for any questions, but also wanted to know if there's anybody in the audience or in the virtual chat. Please raise your hand if you're a member of the community and would like to share thoughts or comments or feedback on this resolution before it goes to passage.
Commissioners?
Go for a vote.
Just a very small suggestion. I think they're rumble strips, not rumble.
Okay,
Is it okay if I?
yeah, you can make that edit.
That's a very large spot.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
But yes, I did want to commend you on all the hard work you did here. I know you spent a lot of time with the community and glad to see all of it come to fruition. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
And members of the public. And members online.
Please indicate by raising your hand. If you're calling in, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. All right, seeing none, I'll now accept a motion to adopt the resolution. If you don't mind just going up to the top, so I can just read it real quick. A resolution in support of a DDOT traffic safety assessment for the 500 to 700 blocks of Columbia Road Northwest.
So moved with unanimous consent.
Any dissent? Right, hearing none, motion passes and the resolution is adopted. And the second resolution from the Transportation Committee.
Yes. So this resolution is concerning a tactical, I am blanking on the word, but a tactical roundabout that will be added into the intersection of where 10th, Florida and Berryhill meet. And I'll just pull that up on a map quickly so folks know what I'm talking about. So it's this area right here. If you've traveled through this area, you've probably noticed that the circle is quite large. This roadway is also quite large. If you look at the data online, the roadway would support, and I'm just going to pull that up. The roadway would support additional bike lanes here without impacting parking, and I believe without impacting any sort of installation of a roundabout. And since there are protected bike lanes on 9th that end around this area, and there are going to be protected bike lanes along 11th, I think it makes sense to then connect 9th to 11th through this route. My primary motivation here is, since there is the space for the facilities, and since this area is on the Move DC plan for protected bike lanes at some point in the future, it just makes sense to do all this work in one go, since it'll save money in the long run. Additionally, connecting these protected bike lanes can help reduce friction between vehicles and people riding their bikes. And I think that's important for ultimately increasing safety. This was not discussed at the TPS meeting because the TESD or the notice of intent was not released until after the TPS meeting. I have been in conversation with 1B, since this is actually in 1B about a block out of 1E. And 1B is going to be introducing their own resolution at their upcoming meeting as well, which will take place in early June. So hoping that we can get this passed from this commission, and then we'll see what happens with 1B, and that we can get some movement from DDOT on adding in some bike lanes here. And then I'll just scroll down a little bit so you can see the roadway width according to the roadway block data on Open Data DC. Some of this is rather nonsensical. It says that there are 3 parking lanes along a portion of this. There are not 3 parking lanes in there. And I actually am being quite liberal in the sense of the amount of space I'm providing for the bike lane. Doesn't need to be 12 feet, but if you look at these areas that add up, 26 plus 18 plus 12 doesn't even hit 61. And this is within all of the guidelines that are in the design and engineering manuals released by DDOT. So yes, I'll now take time for any questions or comments from commissioners.
Sorry, hold on 1 second.
So I just wanted to point out that the roundabout.
So I just
itself,
wanted to point out that the roundabout itself, the NOI that
was
came,
a recommendation that
was
came
a
out of the
recommendation that came out of the livability study that was done 2 years ago. And so for those of you that are starting to see implementation of projects
coming out of the
that
blue,
seem to be
these were all part of that study. The roundabout, I went back.
out of the blue, these were all part of that study. The roundabout wasn't back there. I didn't, as well as part of that livability study. So happy to see it, happy to support if they can
do the bike lane part as well.
do the
May
bike
I
lane
ask real quick, do you know if there are a lot of,
as well.
is 1E being impacted significantly by the outcomes of that?
Yeah, I mean, 1E was.
1E was the focus of, it was us in Columbia Heights. And
It was
it was a long corridor. I'm trying to remember exactly, starting probably at Spring and coming south down to maybe W, not quite to U, I don't,
Maybe.
maybe it was, I don't remember.
But there are, if you were.
But there are, if you're interested, I'll send you the link and you can see what all, there were about 40. And this is the second year, so there'll be a third, so there'll be another wave.
Awesome. Yeah, if you don't mind, it'd be great.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think
Sure.
the tree pits or whatever we're calling them on Otis were part of that livability
Correct.
study, and then the tactical hardening of where Park and Sherman meet were also part of that.
So pardon my ignorance here. So why did Otis then have a notice of intent that we were able to weigh in on, but this doesn't?
We're able to weigh in on this.
But you're proactively doing it, right? They didn't come to you asking for it. There wasn't a period for open comment.
I'm not sure about that. I think it might just be because it's a tactical roundabout, but
Well, I will say, in the original study, it identified which projects would require an NOI, and this one said yes. I'm not quite sure why, but that particular one said yes.
The Otis.
Otis, but they don't all.
Gotcha. Okay.
If it's a non-parking, non-travel lane change, it doesn't require an NOI.
Any other questions from commissioners? Patrick, did you have a question? Do you mind just going
oh,
to
sorry.
the,
Oh, yeah.
or you can just repeat it.
You said, can you just, were you asking what the roundabout looks like, or? Oh, basically, I can't draw on the map, but they're gonna put a circle here. And so when you enter into the intersection, the current proposal is to remove the stop signs, and then I'm not sure how I feel about that, but the current proposal is to remove the stop signs, and then when you enter in the intersection, you'll circle around it. So instead of being able to cut across here, you have to go up and around to get to Florida. Or if you want to get down to 10th, then you have to go up and around to get to 10th if you're coming from this portion of Florida. It's just just imagine a circle on the map. There are others in parts of the city. I can't think of one that's near
Think
us.
of like a
but
very small Thomas circle.
that works too.
Very small.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes.
You have to.
Yeah.
Just for the recording, Patrick Nelson is just mentioning that he believes that intersection to be very dangerous, and from his experience in walking through there. Just
Thanks,
make
Pat.
sure you get on the record. All right, any other questions from the community or from commissioners? I just want to say I appreciate the proactive nature of this and even more collaborating with other commissions. This is something that definitely impacts our ANC, but we were not really notified of it. It was really nice for Commissioner Lakatos to reach out to us and ask if we were interested in getting involved. And I think that we were only able to do that because of some of the proactive stuff that you've done in the past and building a relationship there. So thank you for putting in that investment, and I'm happy that we're seeing some that fruit bear.
Appreciate the kind comments, Chair.
All right. If there are no other questions, I'll now accept a motion to a motion to adopt the resolution requesting the NOI 2383 TESD to include bike lanes.
I motion for unanimous consent to adopt that resolution.
Right. Is there any dissent? All right, hearing none. The motion passes. That is very loud. Does it keep startling you? I'm so sorry.
No, it's just funny. I don't need to hit it stuff. And then final note is the next meeting for the Transportation and Public Spaces Committee will be on Wednesday, June 7th at 7 p.m. And you can find the Zoom link for that on our calendar and also on our Transportation and Public Space page. And like I mentioned, we'll be covering the Georgia Avenue bus lane conversation there. So, and Brian's transportation package. He's very excited about this.
I'm very excited, and I want to make sure that it's very clear to many people in very variety of forums that we are going to be discussing this, and that there's ample opportunity to weigh in, and there's ample notice that this is happening. There should be no confusion that this is the time, this is the place. Please come.
Could you repeat what street your transportation package is for?
8th Street, yes. 8th
Okay.
Street, between V and W. Thank you. Yes. All right. Thank you very much. Anything else?
No.
Okay, great. So next we will move on to a Public Safety and Engagement Committee. Commissioner Newland, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair Footer. So no official business to report from our last meeting. We had our first meeting was 2 weeks ago, heard from representatives from the 3rd District from PD, and also had a lively discussion in terms of what the goals for the committee, what we want them to be for the year. But just welcome folks to join. Our next meeting is June 12th at 7 p.m. So all are welcome, and also a call out for anybody to join as well as a committee member if they're so interested, as we continue to get this committee, up and running and off the ground. So again, no official business to report, and next meeting is in just over 2 weeks. Thank you.
Questions for Commissioner Newland?
May I provide a comment?
Please.
Yes, thanks for all your work so far on the committee. One thing that might be worth looking into, I know 1A just passed a resolution. It was unanimous from the ANC on asking the House Oversight Committee to practice more oversight of the DC. Wow, I am blanking on terms tonight. This is not a good night for me. Not the DC Attorney General, but the assistant who does all the prosecution. That's part of the federal government. Yes, the appointed one. So I can pass that resolution along, but it might be worth considering something for our own ANC to look at and pass.
I would love to see that. Yeah, open. Thank you.
District Attorney.
Yes, District Attorney. There we go. I knew it said attorney. I just
Great. Any questions from members of the public?
Any resolutions that you guys can set my mind, I can send it to the legislative team. I know, I'm not sure if this will still be ANC, but I know that other ANC did resolutions. So any resolutions that are federally related, send it my way and I can send it up to the legislative team.
And just for members online and for the record, Stephanie from the Congresswoman's office was just mentioning that any resolutions that the ANC passes to please forward on to her, and she's happy to forward it to the legislative team in the Congresswoman's office. Thank you. All right. Anything else? All right. Next, we will move on to the Alcoholic Beverages and Cannabis Administration. We have a settlement agreement for consideration, settlement agreement with. I'm so sorry, I say it incorrectly every time.
Anania.
Thank you. Before the commission, and the chair recognizes Commissioner Brown for 5 minutes.
Excellent. I think Commissioner Jacobson is pulling up the settlement agreement. Thank you. So this is a settlement agreement with Anania Market. I'm sorry, Anania liquor store. They are located on 2921 Georgia Avenue, which is between Hobart Street and Columbia Road, across from the Bruce Monroe Park. So this settlement agreement is the language and provisions in this agreement is very similar and comparable to the rest of the businesses along Georgia Avenue and in my single member district. This is standard language for liquor stores, basically recognizing that the business will uphold peace, order, and quiet in the community. It recognizes its current business hours of operation, and also that they will do everything in their power to address noise, loitering, safety, and privacy for residents in the community. And also keep the area sanitized and clean. This particular business is, as I mentioned earlier, right across the street from the Bruce Monroe Park. We have substance abuse issues there. So I wanted to make sure that during their hours of operation, that they work with ever in their power to help mitigate some of those issues. So we talked about prohibiting the sale of alcoholic beverages within mini bottles and single sales, basically anything that's below 375 milliliters, and also discouraging the sale of disposable cups, just to really discourage public drunkenness around the premises and in the public space such as the park. So the owner is really supportive of that. Those were kind of just the only issues that we really had to mitigate, so that provision in there is what is different from other businesses within my single member district who have the same Class A liquor license. I did see a notice coming in from Abra about an hours change request. So keeping the license, but changing the hours of operation from Sunday through Thursday from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then Friday and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. to Sunday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to midnight. This change is very comparable to a particular liquor store that is also located in my single member district on Sherman Avenue. I'm fine with this change. The only issues that I have are the issues that are conflicting with the hours of operation in the park, which the owners have addressed that through this settlement agreement. So happy to address any questions that anybody has.
Yep, Commissioner Gray.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify what you just said. Are they changing the hours and we'll have to update the agreement, or is the agreement already reflecting the hours that they're going to change?
So we just got this, I believe, today or yesterday. So happy to adjust the hours of operation in the settlement agreement. I'll have to go back to the owner and do all of that work. But if we could vote on the settlement agreement with that modification, I'm happy to address that in the settlement agreement.
Oh, okay. So point of clarification. So the settlement agreement has the original hours.
Mhm.
You're okay with, because basically the only change is extending 1 hour to midnight over the weekend.
Correct. And also recognizing that the placard went up while this business was in ANC 1B. So because that liquor license request was not addressed in 1B, we're just having a settlement agreement. So it's now we are kind of receiving this notice with a hearing date. So just happy to just send it to Abra with the changed hours unless there's any concerns that commissioners have or those that are raised within the community. Happy to discuss more.
You're okay with them having the 1 additional hour?
I'm okay with the additional hour.
And they never mentioned that?
They mentioned that in the conversation that they were thinking about applying. I did not know about their timeline and that they were going forward with this request, but I was aware that they were thinking about it.
Other questions? Questions from the community? Yeah. Will you, Brad, we.
So this applicant came before 1B's alcohol beverage and committee asking for a stipulated license. And when we granted the stipulated license, it was on the original hours that were put in place. I also noticed on your, and maybe it's just the way you wrote it up, Rashida, on your settlement agreement, it says that they applied for a license. They already have a stipulated license. So all you're doing is writing a settlement agreement to augment their license. I personally, it's just my opinion, do not think you should extend the hours to this business. I know the owner and I'm not personally happy with him. He's got another business on Georgia Avenue that's right around the corner from me. And I've had a couple of confrontations with his wife about how she operates her business. So just to give you clarification on where they were to now, they're not giving you all the information.
Questions? I do want to just, Patrick, I hear you. I do want to kind of commend you though, because there were a lot of, there was some confusion at first on where this was and where it was going, and kind of the time had passed and we didn't really have an opportunity. And with some proactiveness and some fortitude, you were able to bring the parties together. I know you had extensive conversations with the Civic Association that filed for a protest in the original thing. And I know in our conversations, you felt really good that all parties are kind of walking away feeling heard. And so that's a huge testament because it was over. They didn't have to sign the settlement agreement for anything. And the fact that you were able to negotiate this and all parties felt good, I give you a lot of credit for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go. Do you mind?
Oh, no, please.
So, given that they did only just, we haven't even probably placarded yet, the hours changed. So, my recommendation right now would certainly be, let's just go forward with the agreement as is, the hours as is. It gives the community an opportunity to decide what it's going to do about the change hours. And then, we can always modify in the future.
Great.
Thanks.
I like that.
So just to clarify, you're saying keep it with this
Correct.
because technically it doesn't.
It doesn't, they
Doesn't
haven't
exist.
technically gotten there yet. And the community might come forward and say, I've got a problem and I don't want to, circumvent that ability.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Other questions? No? Okay. So then I'll now accept a motion to accept the settlement agreement as written with no amendments. Is there? Something like just
So
awesome
moved
motion?
with unanimous consent.
Great. Is there any dissent? Hearing none. The motion passes, the resolution settlement agreement is adopted.
Thank you.
All All right, next, we have an update on Aurora Market's request for class change for retail class B to retail class A liquor store. The chair recognizes Commissioner Brown for 5 minutes.
Yes, and I would like to see if any representatives for Aurora Market are present either in the audience or online. If you are online, raise your hand, please. And we will. Yeah, I'll repeat myself because I was on mute. If there are any representatives from Aurora Market present in the audience or online, please raise your hand if you're online and we will promote you. And if you're in the audience, please come to the podium. Okay. Hearing none, I am happy to share this update. Basically, Abra sent ANC 1A, I'm sorry, ANC 1E a notice of a license change for Aurora Market, requesting a class change from retailer's license class B to A liquor store. Aurora Market is located at 500 Irving Street Northwest in a residential R4 zone. We have worked with Aurora Market, and when we were, this business was located in ANC 1A. Within ANC 1A, we have a settlement agreement, and I believe that also transferred over to ANC 1E for their request, in response to their request to have a CR tavern license with entertainment endorsement. So that is approved through ABRA. Prior to that, they applied for a Class B license where they can sell wine and beer. That was also approved through ABRA, but our settlement agreement recognizes their CR tavern license with entertainment endorsement. Aurora Market, in my conversation with them, wanted to apply for this license change in response to an idea or concept that they have in their market store where they are currently do not have, where they currently are attempting to sell liquor at that particular location. It is located in ANC 5C. It is my understanding that the commissioners are aware. We have been in conversation with the owner about their intent to move forward with this license change in order to sell liquor, including beer and wine, at this particular location on Rhode Island Avenue. Although ABRA does not have a notice or a hearing date or any type of application requests coming from the owner in response to this particular location on Rhode Island Avenue, the ANC expressed support by email and said that they were aware and are moving forward with the settlement agreement. So that is the update. I intend to keep our settlement agreement as is. The business has been placarded to make publicly aware of this change, but we haven't recognized their Class B. We currently are have a settlement agreement because the owner has moved forward with the CR tavern license and entertainment endorsement, which we support. So happy to address any questions or comments that the commission has or members of the community.
Commissioner. Comment, and I know you're aware of it, Commissioner, but it's a corner store. And so because it's in the RF1 zone, I don't actually think but I think we need to just make sure that ABRA understands what they're doing, because you know they shouldn't. I don't think they intend to operate a liquor store at that location, but I think they just need to make sure that they've got the paperwork right on this.
Yeah, and I've spoken with the owner and multiple times recommended that he contact Abra's licensing team to be clear about all of the requirements that are around this, and recognizing his intent is to sell liquor and beer and wine at the Rhode Island Avenue location. I think his intent is to transfer this over to Rhode Island Avenue, thinking that it will apply, but yes, the recommendation from me is to double check what you're doing with Abra. And they will provide some guidance accordingly.
So I'll just say for the record, community member Patrick Nelson was just stating that his understanding is that they would not be able to go from a B to an A license, given that they are a corner store in the RF1 zone. And he commented on his experience with helping another corner store 2 doors down from me get a license for sales, and how they had to modify some of the zoning code and legislation to make that happen.
And also, if I may, this particular request is going through the Abra board and the ABC board, so I'm sure that they will vote accordingly. I forgot what the hearing date is, but there's a hearing date that's coming up, and it'll work through the process, and I'm sure it'll come up. Yeah.
It's 2 days before our next meeting. Monday. All right, any other questions?
To give folks a little bit more background, I'm going to pull up the resolutions portal so folks know that it exists. Basically, there is a resolutions portal that exists for ANCs to upload their resolutions to. This is a good place to go if you want to see what our ANC is doing. We upload all of our resolutions here. It has not been. Yes, this is an old picture. Our chair is featured prominently. This website has had a lot of issues. I spent 4 hours a couple months ago debugging some of it to speed things up. It used to take about a minute for this page to load. And sometimes they're worried that it does not get the support that it needs from the mayor's communication office. So the resolution that I wrote is related to some of the confusion that we've had over the past couple of months. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit. It just provides some background on this resolution portal, how it came into existence, commenting on that we use this as our primary mechanisms to store resolutions for the public. And this is also a great way for the public to know about what all of the ANCs are doing. And I've used it personally to figure out other resolutions that our own ANC should be passing. So I recommend a few enhancements to the portal in this resolution. So, add the ability for commissioners to update, change, or remove incorrect uploads. This has happened a few times with other commissions where they weren't clear on what some of the fields are supposed to mean. Auto notify the commissioner who uploaded a document of responses to a resolution or letter by email, So agencies can comment on resolutions in the resolution portal. It isn't very common. I'll get to that in a little bit. But right now, when they comment, you have to manually go in and check that they commented. You don't get notified. You're also only allowed to tag just one agency, which doesn't really make sense given sometimes we have resolutions that cross several agencies. And right now you can't filter by ANC, you can only filter by ward and date. The last piece is recommending the mayor's correspondence unit requires agencies to post their formal responses to commission through the portal. We've had some challenges with this recently where ideally everything should be recorded in the portal. It makes it much more transparent to the public. When we've gotten responses from agencies, sometimes they're not aware of the portal. Sometimes they think that they can't actually access the portal when they can. So the goal here is to get the correspondence unit to provide some education and require agencies to post their responses in there rather than emailing back and forth with commissioners where it isn't as transparent and it requires extra work to make it transparent. And then the last piece is just asking the CTO to improve the functionality and implement some of the above recommendations and gives me or names me the designee to represent the commission in matters relating to this portal. Questions from commissioners?
I have two things, but commissioners, anything? You want to talk? Questions? No. Two quick things. So I know I've read this a couple of times. We've kind of gone back and forth, and I was thinking about it just as I was coming here today. One, I think that they're already required. And so I wonder, I mean, by like policy from the mayor's office. So I wonder if we want to change that last whereas clause for the mayor's correspondence unit to educate about the requirement. And also to educate them about how to use it, because right now, technically they're required to do it and they're just not.
Yeah, I guess, could we say educate and require agencies just in case they don't currently require?
Yeah.
And require agencies.
Like, and then require agencies or something like that.
Educate agencies on how to access the portal and post responses. And I'll just make the second one another whereas clause. Let's do this actually. Does the following do the following. Require agencies to post
Their formal responses.
their formal responses to commission resolutions through the portal. Okay,
And education. Perfect.
and then you said you had a second point.
Yeah, do you think it would make sense to also include the council as an entity to tag? Are they supposed to interact with it as well?
No.
Executive. It's just the executive.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think maybe at some point it might make sense to expand the functionality so it works for council, but I don't think it really does make sense right now. I don't know what's going on here, but we'll fix the formatting later.
Any other questions? Any comments from the public? All right. Hearing and seeing none, I will now accept a motion to adopt the resolution requesting agencies to respond to resolutions via the ANC resolutions portal. Their motion?
I motion with unanimous consent that we adopt said resolution.
Great. Any dissent? Seeing or hearing no dissent, the motion passes and the resolution is adopted. All right, any other official business that we need to consider tonight? No. No comment? Sure, if you want to come up. Mhm.
Excuse me, just a logistical question. Since you're going to be doing in-person meetings now, are you anticipating getting a real mic system so that those of us in the audience can hear?
Yes, thank you for that.
This room is really bad.
I think that there,
After today, there are a number of improvements that we could probably make, such as the internet as well. Yes. there
And
is some
are you
confusion
also
about the mics tonight, too.
planning on moving to other locations within the ANC boundaries?
We were planning to talk about it as soon as we were done with this meeting, just to see kind of how it goes. But I know that there is an appetite for starting to have them, and that there's some requests from across the commission. And so there might be a desire to go to different
I
locations.
mean, I'm fine with this because I can walk to
Right.
it. I'll say, I'll vote for this, but I'm sure anyone up in Parkview doesn't want to come all the way down here.
I think the issue that we've been finding in just getting to this location was different accessible locations for nightly meetings to the public. So if you happen to have any
Well,
recommendations.
I would suggest that, I won't give you a whole bunch of suggestions, but based on the fact that this technically is in 1B and you're allowed to go outside of your boundary, I would suggest that you look into Tubman, since that's where 1A meets, and that's a central location. And then maybe even go up to Parkview Rec, because they've had meetings there before. I mean, I just think it's, to be fair to everyone that may want to come, not everybody wants to truck all the way down to U Street.
Yeah, one of the other reasons why we chose is because it has parking.
Right.
Yeah. Cross.
Yep.
It was free. Yes, it was free. All right, thank you, Patrick. All right, well, if there's no other business, I'll now accept a motion to adjourn.
Should we thank the venue?
Say it again?
Oh, well, I just wanted to thank the DC Housing Finance Authority for providing this venue free of charge to ANC 1E, even though it's technically outside our boundaries. It was very much within our budget. So
Right.
thanks to the city.
Yes, I appreciate that. Is there a motion? to
I
adjourn?
motion with unanimous consent that we adjourn until our next meeting, which is
say it.
on Wednesday, June 28th, 2023 at 7 PM.
Perfect. All right. Is there any dissent? All right. Hearing none, motion passes and we adjourned. Before we conclude the recording, a couple of just quick notes. Please note that the next general body meeting will be on June 28th. Wednesday, June 28th, and the committee on the whole will be on Tuesday, June 20th. The next general body meeting will announce whether it will be hybrid or virtual in the coming days. And as always, you can find announcements on our website at anc1e.org. As Commissioner Gallagher said earlier, special thank you to Karen in the organizing office for the DC Housing Finance Agency for allowing us to use the space, and for their technician team for staying and helping us to set everything up. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.